Hare Krishna, dear devotees, we are gonna continue reading Ramayana. We left out in the page 153 of this book. We can see. And the paragraph. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When he heard of his father's death, Rama immediately fainted to the ground. Only when Sita, Lakshmana, and Shatrughna sprinkled water on his body did he regain consciousness. Then, after tearfully lamenting the loss of his father, Rama declared, "Now I shall never return to Ayodhya." Although he appeared to lament like an ordinary man, in truth, Rama remained transcendental. The Lord, his body, and his pastimes are never ordinary or material. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna proclaims that simply by understanding the transcendental nature of his appearance, activities, and disappearance, one can become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Lord Krishna displayed a similar reaction when informed by the demon Shalva that his father Vasudeva had been killed. At that time, he almost fell unconscious from grief. Why do Lord Rama and Lord Krishna appear at times to be bewildered, although they are both the same supreme personality of Godhead? Lamentation and bewilderment characterize a conditioned soul. How can they be present in God, who is full in all opulences, including knowledge and power? This is a controversial point. Factually, the Lord is never misled or illusioned. When playing the role of a human being, he presents himself as a complete human being, exhibiting all the emotions of an ordinary man. All great sages who render the Lord transcendental loving service are liberated from the bodily conception. How then could the Lord himself fall under illusion by identifying the soul with the body? Clearly, his grief is but another opulence, another facet of his supreme, unlimited, and inconceivable personality. Thereafter, Rama went to the banks of the Mandakini Ganga with his brothers and Sumantra to offer water for the benefit of his father. Then, upon returning to his cottage atop the Chitrakuta mountain, Rama clasped the hands of his brothers, and all four of them wailed in grief. This loud sound reverberated throughout the valley. When Bharata's army heard the sound, they became aggrieved, for they knew it to be the brothers' lamentation for their departed father. All the soldiers then rushed toward the sound, for they too were anxious to see Rama. When they reached the cottage, the warriors greeted Rama with tears in their eyes. In turn, Rama welcomed each of them according to their position. Meanwhile, while keeping the three widows of King Dasharatha in front, Vasishta hastened to see Rama. When Vasishta and the widows arrived at the banks of the Mandakini Ganga, they saw the remnants of articles used as an offering by Rama for his departed father. Kaushalya was pained to see that the only food Rama had at his disposal for an offering was the pulp of a forest fruit. Kaushalya considered this unworthy for her husband, and with some amusement she thought, "This is the truth of the adage. The deities a man worships have to partake of the same food upon which he subsists. When Vasishta and the three widows arrived at Rama's cottage, they were distressed to see him. He looked like a demigod that had fallen from heaven. Rama quickly stood up and went to touch the feet of his mothers. Then, as he bowed before them, the three women wiped the dust from Rama's back. Likewise, with tears in their eyes, Sita and Lakshmana touched the feet of the mothers. Kaushalya embraced Sita while Rama approached Vasishta to touch his feet. Rama then sat down with his preceptor, as others also came around them. Bharata then told Rama, I want to return the kingdom of Koshala to you. Although everyone present applauded this proposal, Rama replied, My dear Bharata, in this material world, no one can act independently. Under the control of eternal time, everything ultimately meets with defeat. Thus, no wise man should lament for life's reversals. Union ends in separation. For as pieces of driftwood float together and then disperse, family and society meet briefly and then depart for their separate destinations. As solid pillars gradually decay, causing a house to collapse, a man totters into old age and finally meets death. As a river cannot return to its source, everyone must follow the path of his father and forefathers. Why should one mourn for others when he himself is dying? A man's skin becomes wrinkled and his hair turns gray. What can he do? He rejoices when the sun rises and rejoices when it sets, not thinking he has died a little. A sober and learned person should utilize his energy for following religious principles to attain a higher destination after death. There is no need to lament for our father, for he has given up an old body to attain heavenly happiness. Bharata, you must return to Ayodhya at once and execute our father's order. I will remain here to carry out his will. Bharata argued. Our noble father had become too infatuated with women in his old age. Indeed, he seemed to confirm the popular notion that at the time of death, one invariably becomes obsessed by something. Rama, you should undo the harm that our father caused due to that obsession and return to Ayodhya. You are a kshatriya, and your duty is to act as a ruler, not as a hermit. You are a householder, the noblest of the four ashrams. Why are you abandoning the duties of family life? If you refuse to return to Ayodhya, then so shall I. I will remain here in the forest with you, like Lakshmana. Rama replied, Dear Bharata, you are wrongly criticizing our father, saying he was impelled by lusty attachment for Kaikeyi. At the time of Dasharatha's marriage to Kaikeyi, her father made him promise that her son would succeed him as emperor. Bharata, please go back to Ayodhya now to keep our father's promise intact. You must take the responsibility of ruling the kingdom, even if it is only for my sake. Next, the great rishi named Jabali began to speak, with the hope of inspiring within Rama some desire to enjoy royal opulence and sense gratification, thus causing him to return to Ayodhya. Jabali expounded the following atheistic philosophy. O Prince, The living being is nothing more than the resultant combination of sperm and ovum. The father is the efficient cause of the living being, and the mother is the material cause. But in reality, the only cause of creation is the chance interaction of atomic particles. When a person dies, he once more becomes dust. Thus, everything is only a combination of atoms and nothing more. What we call mother, father, son, or daughter has no actual relationship with us. Rama, why should you undergo suffering just for the sake of your so called father? What is the use of performing funeral ceremonies? Can the dead eat your offerings? Only what we can directly perceive is the all in all. Therefore, my dear Rama, you should enjoy that which is pleasing to the senses by accepting the kingdom from Bharata. Hearing this diatribe, Rama angrily replied, "Your views are impiety in the grab of piety. Thus they are most dangerous. In the name of wisdom, you are preaching the grossest ignorance. Real knowledge leads to self-realization, whereas one who lives only for the pleasure of the senses becomes a slave to uncontrolled lust and greed. Truth is the highest principle of virtue. Thus, I will adhere to the order of my father without being swayed by the aspiration for personal sense gratification. This earth is the field of action. When one attains the realitude human birth, he should only perform pious activities. My father made a mistake by keeping you as a minister because your views are atheistic. A non-believer like yourself is so condemned that the Vedas prohibit one from even seeing his face. Jabali then admitted, "In truth, I am a follower of the Vedas. I have firm faith in the exercise of God. I was only speaking from that viewpoint in hope of persuading you to return to Ayodhya." At that, Vasishta intervened, since Rama had become highly agitated by Jabali's speech. Jabali spoke like an atheist only because he knew how much everyone wants you to return to Ayodhya to sit on the throne. In the dynasty of Ikshvaku, every great ruler of the past selected their eldest son to inherit the kingdom. The unbroken rule has been that for as long as the elder brother is alive, the younger brother cannot accept the throne. Therefore, we again implore you to return to Ayodhya. You should consider that to deny my order would be an irreligious act. The instructions of the Guru take precedence over those given by the mother or father. Rama, however, remained adamant, insisting that one's duty to his parents is inviolable. When Bharata realized that his attempt to persuade Rama was futile, he became so sad that he ordered Sumantra, "Spread kusha grass in front of the doorway of Rama's cottage. I will sit there blindfolded, foregoing all food and drink until Rama relents and accepts the royal throne." Sumantra, however, would not act without Rama's order. Thus Bharata spread the kusha grass with his own hands and sat down in front of Rama's cottage. Rama then said, "Dear brother, why are you adopting this attitude? Why are you stubbornly trying to oppose me?" Thus addressed, Bharata gave up the idea of fasting until death, but continued pleading, "Let me act as your proxy by staying here in the forest for 14 years while you return to Ayodhya." Just then a host of celestial rishis appeared invisibly in the sky and applauded the wonderful conversation between the two brothers. Then, desiring to accelerate the death of Ravana, the rishis said, "O Bharata, you should follow the advice of your elder brother Rama. Finally, surrendering to the inevitable, Bharata produced a pair of wooden sandals inlaid with gold. He then requested Rama to place his lotus feet on them. Rama did as his brother asked, and then returned the sandals to Bharata. Then, with the sandals in hand, Bharata bowed to Rama, saying, after relegating the burden of ruling the kingdom to these sandals, I will remain outside Ayodhya wearing matted hair and clothing of tree bark. O Rama, I shall subsist upon only fruit and roots while awaiting your return. If, however, after 14 years you do not come back to Ayodhya, then I shall give up my life by entering fire. Rama sanctioned this statement and then embraced Bharata and Shatrughna, assuring them he would return after the term of his exile had expired. With tears in his eyes, Rama bid farewell to his brothers and urged them not to neglect or hate Kaikeyi. Rama then spoke sweet words to his mothers, although they were too upset to reply. Bharata then circumambulated Rama, and at last, while imploring everyone to leave for Ayodhya, Rama returned his back and entered the cottage. Placing Rama's sandals upon his head, Bharata mounted his chariot. Along with Shatrughna, they set out, keeping the Brahmanas in front. When they arrived at the ashram of Bharadvaja, the sage inquired whether Bharata had seen Rama and if he had accomplished his mission. Bharata replied that Rama was determined to observe his term of exile. Vasishtha brought forth Rama's wooden sandals and requested Bharadvaja to empower them with the potency to fulfill the needs of the people of Ayodhya. This was ceremoniously done by Bharadvaja, and thereafter Bharata clasped the rishi's feet and took permission to depart. Returning by the same path he previously followed, Bharata finally arrived at the outskirts of Ayodhya. When he saw the city's desolate appearance, he said to Sumantra, without Rama, Ayodhya has no life, just as the material body remains inert as soon as the living force passes out of it. Upon entering Dasharatha's palace, Bharata broke down and cried. Seeing its desolate appearance, Bharata then announced that he would retire to Nandigrama to live as an ascetic. As the ministers praised his noble determination, Bharata called for his chariot and departed with Shatrughna. Out of spontaneous affection, all Ayodhya's citizens followed Bharata to Nandigrama, a village just outside Ayodhya. Upon his arrival, Bharata first ordered his ministers to install Rama's shoes upon a royal throne. Thereafter, remaining at Nandigrama with his army, Bharata submitted the state's affairs before Rama's shoes, including all gifts presented to him. Bharata would often be seen holding the royal umbrella over Rama's shoes or fanning them with a chamara. In this way, he ruled the kingdom for 14 years, always feeling subordinate to Lord Rama, who remained there in the form of his shoes. Meanwhile, Rama noticed that there was anxiety within the minds of the rishis living in the vicinity of Chitrakuta mountain. Feeling that he might be the cause, Rama humbly approached the chief rishi and said, I can see that something is disturbing the minds of the rishis living here. Please tell me why, if you can, especially if I am at fault. The old rishi replied, My dear Rama, There could never be any fault on your part. Our fear is caused by the Rakshasas headed by Kara, the younger brother of Ravana. Being envious by nature, Kara and the other Rakshasas came before us in hideous forms and disrupt our sacrifices and pollute our bodies with impure substances. We shall move to another area before the Rakshasas resort to violence. I plan to take my disciples to the ashram of Ashvamuni, not far from here. If you like, you may also accompany me and take up residence there. Rama gave the rishi permission to depart, but informed him that he would remain at Chitrakuta. Later on, however, Rama felt uncomfortable about staying there, since the memory of Bharata and his mother's haunted him. Rama also felt that the area had become contaminated by the stool of the horses and elephants of Bharata's army. Thus, he finally made up his mind to go elsewhere. Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana thus left Chitrakuta for the ashrama of Atri Muni, where they were received affectionately, as if they were the rishi's own children. When Atri called for his aged wife, Anasuya, to welcome Sita, the eternal consort of Lord Rama, approached the ascetic woman with great humility. Having greeted that hermitage who was endowed with self-restraint, Sita, full of joy, inquired after her health with joined palms. Seeing the highly blessed and celebrated Sita, who was given to the practice of virtue, the old lady thereupon comfortingly said to her, "Luckily enough, you have your eyes fixed on righteousness. O Sita, I'm glad you are following your husband Sri Rama, who has been exiled to the forest. Worlds that are attended with great prosperity await those women to whom their husband is dear, no matter whether he lives in a city or in a forest, whether he is propitious or adverse. In the eyes of women who are blessed with a noble disposition, the husband is the highest deity, no matter whether he is ill mannered or licentious or entirely devoid of riches. I do not see for a woman a friend greater than the husband and more capable of yielding one's desired object at all places like the imperishable fruit of one's austerities. O princess of the Videha kingdom, those evil women, however, whose hearts are swayed by desire, who lord it over their husband, having no sense of virtue and vice, and move about at will, do not follow him in the aforesaid manner. Indeed, fallen a prey to lust, women who belong to that category, O princess of Mithila, meet with a fall from virtue and also reap infamy. Women like you, on the other hand, who are adorned with virtues like devotion to their husband, and who know what is good and evil in the world, will dwell in heaven in the same way as those who have performed miraculous deeds. Therefore, remaining devoted to the service of this prince, looking upon him as the foremost object of your worship, and carefully serving him, practice virtue in cooperation with your husband. Thereby you will easily attain fame as well as religious merit. Appreciating Anasuya's words, Sita modestly replied as follows: "This instruction which you have given to me is no matter for wonder on your holiness' part. It is, however, already known to me how the husband is the adored of a chaste wife. Even if this husband of mine were ignoble, and without any means of livelihood, I ought to have nonetheless conducted myself in the same way without any hesitation or scruple towards him. This was my duty. How much more worthy of devotion then is he who is deserving of praise by virtue of his excellences and excellent qualities headed by compassion, who has controlled his senses, who is constant in his love, whose mind is set on righteousness, and who is as loving as a mother and father combined. Sri Rama, who is possessed of great might, conducted himself towards the other consorts of the king, his stepmothers, in the same way as he did towards Kaushalya, his own mother. Whatever was taught to me by my mother-in-law while I was coming to the lonely forest stands inscribed on my heart. None that lesson too, which was actually imparted to me in the past by my mother while making over my head to the bridegroom at the time of marriage, in the presence of the sacred fire, is still remembered by me. All that teaching has actually been renewed in my mind by your teachings. A lady given to the practice of virtue, no austerity other than the service of her husband is enjoined on a wife, steadfast in their vow of fidelity to their husbands. Many exalted women are highly respected in the realm of gods by dint of their meritorious action. Being pleased with Sita, Anasuya then said, "My dear child, I wish to offer you a benediction using my ample stock of ascetic merit. Just tell me what would you like." Sita replied, "O great saintly lady, your presence is itself a most sufficient benediction." Nevertheless, Anasuya happily gave Sita a celestial garland that never faded, celestial garments, ornaments, and cosmetics that were all inexhaustible. Then, when Anasuya requested her to narrate the story of her marriage to Rama, Sita replied as follows. While my father, King Janaka, was once plowing the soil to prepare a sacrificial altar, I suddenly emerged from the earth, covered with dust. A celestial voice then announced that I should be accepted by the childless king. Thus I was raised as the daughter of Maharaja Janaka. Then, as I approached puberty, my father became anxious since he could not find a suitable husband for such a divinely born girl. Finally, he decided to hold a Swayamvara, wherein I would be allowed to marry anyone who could string the bow of Lord Shiva, given by Varuna to our ancestor Devarata. However, even the greatest of kings failed to lift the bow. What to speak of stringing it? However, Rama arrived at Mithila along with Vishwamitra, and he easily broke the bow in two after stringing it. But Rama would not accept me as his wife until he received permission from his father, Maharaja Dasharatha. Thus, it was only after the arrival of the Koshala king that the marriage ceremony was performed. After Sita had told the story and an evening was approaching, Anasuya requested Sita to attend to her husband. After adorning herself with her newly acquired jewels, after adorning herself with newly acquired jewels, Rama was pleased to see Sita so exquisitely decorated, and that night they slept at Atri Rishi's ashrama. The next morning, Rama inquired from the rishi about the path leading to the Dandakaranya forest. The sage then gave Rama directions and warned him. That forest is infested with fierce and malicious Rakshasas. They take pleasure in devouring anyone living there that neglects to rinse his mouth after eating or drinking, or who is inattentive in following any other religious injunctions. Thereafter Rama took leave of the rishi and, accompanied by Sita and Lakshmana, entered the dense forest like the moon entering a mass of dark clouds. Aranyakanda, another chapter. As Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana approached the Dandakaranya forest, They beheld a delightful cluster of cottages inhabited by rishis, surrounded by towering trees laden with fruit and flowers, and resounding with the singing of birds and the chanting of Vedic mantras. The ashramas sanctified the hearts of all who beheld it. Kusha grass and garments made of tree bark were spread everywhere, and deer and other wild animals roamed about freely without fear. Rama and Lakshmana loosened the strings of their bows and entered the hermitage. The rishis greeted them pleasantly and gave them a suitable grass hut to reside in. Then, after passing the night, Rama took his leave from the sages and ventured even deeper into the forest, with Sita walking in the middle and Lakshmana behind. As they walked along, a gigantic, hideous Rakshasa suddenly appeared before them. Clad in a blood-stained tiger skin, he had sunken eyes, long sharp teeth, a jagged jaw, and a large, round, protruding belly. From his spear dangled the heads of 3 lions, 4 tigers, 2 wolves, then spotted deer, and an elephant, all dripping with blood. Appearing like death personified, the horrible monster roared ferociously and lunged forward, catching hold of Sita. Then, after quickly retreating, retreating some distance, the Rakshasa again roared loudly, I shall take this woman for my wife and drink the blood of you other 2. At this Rama exclaimed, Alas, seeing Sita being touched by another is more painful for me to bear than the death of my father. Lakshmana, however, was in no mood for such talk. He reproached Rama, saying, How can you merely stand there lamenting? Watch me as I kill this Rakshasa and vent the anger I have held toward Bharata for so long. The Rakshasa called out, Who are you intruding into my forest? Rama replied, We are 2 Kshatriyas. Why do you dare obstruct us like this, carrying off my wife? To this the Rakshasa said, My name is Virada. I am the son of Java by his second wife Virada. In reward for my severe austerities, Lord Brahma benedicted me to become immune from all weapons. Therefore, I advise you to run away while you can and leave this lovely woman for me. Otherwise, I will be forced to kill you. At that, Rama and Lakshmana quickly took up their swords and rushed at the Rakshasa. However, even though they severely hacked his body, the wounded Rakshasa picked up Rama and Lakshmana in his arms and began carrying them away, deep into the forest. Upon seeing this, Sita cried out piteously, O Rakshasa, please leave these 2 aside and take me instead. Hearing this, Rama and Lakshmana decided to kill Virada at once. Exhibiting superhuman prowess, Rama broke off the Rakshasa's right arm while Lakshmana wrenched off his left. As Virada fell to the ground bereft of his senses, Rama and Lakshmana continued to beat him with their fists. However, in spite of being smashed and kicked, the Rakshasa did not die. Seeing this, Rama told to Lakshmana, Since this demon cannot be slain in battle, let us bury him alive. Quickly dig a pit while I guard him. As Lakshmana dug, Virada regained consciousness and said to Rama, I now recognize you. In truth, I am the Gandharva, Tumburu. Because of lusting after the Apsara Ramba, I was cursed by Kuber to become a Rakshasa until a time that I would be delivered by you. Please bury me in this hole to release me from my curse. Thereafter, please go to meet the great Rishi Sarabhanga, who resides 12 miles from here. When you see him, he will give you some very beneficial advice. Lakshmana continued digging while Rama kept his foot on the Rakshasa's neck. Then, when Lakshmana had finished, Rama threw the screaming demon deep into the hole and quickly covered him up with large stones. In this way, Tumbur gave up his Rakshasa body and ascended to heaven, relieved of his curse. Formerly, even great demons like Virada were intelligent enough to understand that they were not the body, but eternal spirit souls transmigrating from one body to another. Today, due to the influence of the age of Kali, even great scholars and religionists cannot understand this truth. In this age, people are short lived, unintelligent, unfortunate, and not philosophically inclined. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has shown his special mercy by delivering the easiest and most sublime method of self realization, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, by which one immediately contacts the Lord and qualifies himself to ascend to the spiritual world and live in eternal bliss with him. Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita set out to see the great sage Sarabhanga. As they approached the rishis' ashrama, they were amazed to see King Indra seated upon a celestial chariot whose wheels did not touch the ground. Indra was accompanied by other demigods and was conversing with Sarabhanga, while another celestial chariot drawn by green horses waited in the sky. However, when Indra saw Rama approaching, he told the other demigods, I do not want the Lord to see me yet, but only after he kills Ravana. Indra ascended to the sky on his chariot drawn by 1,000 horses. Having witnessed this wonder, Sita, Rama, and Lakshmana quickly went and touched Sarabhanga's feet. Then, after being welcomed by the rishi, Rama said, O foremost of sages, if you are able to discuss the matter, please tell us the purpose of Indra's visit. Sarabhanga replied, Indra came here to take me to Brahmaloka, the destination I have earned by my performance of severe penances. However, I told the King of Heaven that before departing from this world I wanted to see you, knowing that you were nearby. Rama requested Sarabhanga to designate a place for him to dwell during the period of his exile. The rishi replied, O Lord, you should approach the great sage Sutikshna. He will provide you with a suitable residence in a most pleasant portion of the forest. O Rama, as for myself, I have one request I beg you to fulfill. The time has come for me to quit my body. Therefore, I humbly request that I may do so in your presence. Saying this, Sarabhanga built a fire, and when he poured ghee upon it, the fire blazed brightly. Then, while chanting mantras, the rishi entered the fire, burning his body to ashes. Immediately afterward, Sarabhanga rose from the fire in a youthful, dazzling, effulgent body. He then ascended to Brahmaloka and was welcomed by its inhabitants. Thereafter, the assembled rishis approached Rama and petitioned, Many of us who live in this forest are being mercilessly killed by the Rakshasas. You may come and see the dead bodies that are still lying about here and there. O Rama, we humbly request you, give us protection. Rama assured the rishis, As a Kshatriya, I am your servant. Thus, for your sake, I will kill the Rakshasas. Accompanied by the sages, Rama proceeded to the ashram of Sutikshna. After receiving Rama's obeisances, the rishi said, I have been waiting your visit, O descendant in the dynasty of Raghu. Before ascending to Brahmaloka, King Indra came here and informed me of your imminent arrival. When Rama asked the rishi to designate a place for him to reside, the rishi offered him the use of his own cottage. Rama refused, however, saying, If we were to remain here by killing the deer, we would become the cause of your unhappiness. Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana spent the night at Sutikshna's ashrama. The next morning, Rama took his leave, bowing before the great sage. Sutikshna embraced Rama, inviting him to return to his ashrama. After visiting the different hermitages in the Dandakaranya forest. Later that day, hoping to tactfully impart some advice to Rama, Sita said, "My dear husband, due to the powerful influence of material nature, it is possible even for a great and noble man to gradually become degraded. Therefore, one should always be very careful to control his mind and senses, avoiding the addictions that result from material desire. There are three sinful activities that should especially be avoided: false speech, sexual relations with another's wife, and cruelty toward those who are not inimical. In your character, there is no trace of first two faults, for you have never uttered a lie, nor could you think of lusting after another man's wife. However, I see that you take the lives of many innocent animals. Thus, I can understand that there is still the contamination of enmity in you. I feel very unhappy when I see how the poor animals are being needlessly killed. My dear Rama, simply by carrying a bow in your hands, you increase the killing propensity, just as putting fuel too near just as putting fuel too near a fire makes it blaze higher. Please listen as I relate a story in this connection. Once, there was a great rishi who performed such powerful austerities that King Indra became afraid of being overthrown. With a desire to obstruct the rishi's advancement, King Indra came before him in the guise of a warrior. Indra handed the Brahmana a sword and requested, "Please keep this for me very carefully until I return for it." The rishi consented, and therefore remaining true to his vow, he always kept the sword with him, even when he went into the forest to collect fruits and roots. As a result, the rishi's mind gradually became tinged with the desire for cruelty. He gradually gave up his execution of austerities in exchange for a life of violence. In this way, the rishi became degraded and attained a hellish destination after death. Therefore, my dear husband, since that Brahmana was vanquished simply by the association of Indra's sword, I request that you keep your bow in hand only to kill the Rakshasas that are harassing the rishis. Please do not kill even the innocent Rakshasas, to speak of other creatures. Although I know it is not my position to instruct you, I pray that you give my words careful thought. Afterward, please do what you think is best." Rama replied, "Dear Sita, I certainly appreciate your words, which are full of wisdom. I know that it is only because you love me that you have thus advised me, thinking only of my welfare. Unless one is dear, he is never given such frank counsel. O daughter of Janaka, the rishis could easily kill the Rakshasas themselves. However, they do not do so, for it would diminish their stock of acquired ascetic merit. For this reason, I have promised to kill all the Rakshasas in the Dandakaranya forest. Even if I were to somehow renounce you, O Lakshmana, I could never give up a promise to Brahmanas." Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana arrived at a large, beautiful lake. As they drew near, they heard the sound of singing, seeming to come from somewhere within the lake's waters. However, no one could be seen there. At that time, a rishi named Dharma Bharta happened by, and Rama asked him about the mysterious singing. This lake, the rishi began, is known as Panchavati and was originally created by the sage Mandakarni with his mystic power. Once Mandakarni Rishi performed austerities on the shore of this lake for 10,000 years, subsisting only on air. The demigods became very fearful, thinking the Rishi was desirous of occupying on their posts. Thus they deputed 5 apsaras to divert Mandakarni from his austerities. The Rishi indeed became captivated by the women and married them all. After this, the Rishi created a secret house within the water and retired there to reside with his wives. The sound you are hearing is the music of the Apsaras. Even today, they constantly serve the Rishi, who has regained his youth by utilizing his ascetic prowess. Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana went on, wandering from ashrama to ashrama within the Dandakaranya forest. They would stay at each hermitage for a week and month or longer, sometimes even a year. In this way, 10 years of Rama's exile passed comfortably and contentedly. After this time, the three wanderers returned to the hermitage of Sutikshna to reside. While one day conversing with Sutikshna, Rama said, I have heard that the great sage Agastya lives somewhere in Dandakaranya, but I could not find him within the vast forest. I would like to offer my respects to the Rishi and receive his blessings. Please direct me to his ashrama. After taking directions from Sutikshna, Rama departed accompanied by Sita and Lakshmana. Then, as they came to the vicinity of Agastya Rishi's ashrama, Rama narrated the following history. Once there were two Rakshasas, brothers named Vatapi, and Ilvala. Ilvala would take the form of a Brahmana, and speaking in Sanskrit, he would invite some real Brahmins to a memorial ceremony. Before the arrival of the Brahmins, Ilvala would have Vatapi take the form of a ram. Then, after cooking his brother, Ilvala would feed him to the invited Brahmins. When Vatapi thus entered the Brahmins' stomachs, Ilvala would loudly call, Oh, my brother, please come out now. Being summoned, Vatapi would tear open the Brahmins' stomachs and come out, bleating like a ram. In this way, the two Rakshasas killed thousands of Brahmanas. Finally, at the request of the demigods, Agastya Muni went there as an invited guest. Agastya ate Vatapi in the form of a ram, and then when Ilvala called for his brother, the rishi informed him, I have already digested Vatapi and sent him to the abode of Yamaraj. When Ilvala heard this, he tried to attack Agastya in a fit of rage. However, the rishi burnt him to ashes with his angry glance. Therefore, because the Rakshasas feared Agastya Muni, his ashrama remained free from attack. When Rama entered Agastya Rishi's ashrama, sitting places were prepared and they were provided with a suitable welcome. After finishing their meal, Agastya presented Rama with the bow of Vishnu that had been constructed by Vishwakarma, along with two inexhaustible queers from Lord Indra, an infallible arrow, and a gold inlaid sword from Lord Brahma. Then turning to Sita, Agastya praised her, saying, You have earned eternal glory by voluntarily accepting such hardship for the sake of your husband. This is especially meritorious, since it has been the nature of women since the dawn of creation to love a man only for as long as he is prosperous. Thereafter, Rama asked Agastya to suggest a place for his residence. After some contemplation, the rishi recommended he go to Panchavati, 16 miles away, near the banks of the river Godavari. Then, just before Rama's departure, Agastya confided I already know about your entire life by dint of my yogic perception, which has been enhanced by my love for you. After leaving the Rishi's ashrama, traveling on the way to Panchavati, Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana came upon Jatayu, the gigantic king of the vultures. Thinking at first that he may be a Rakshasa, Rama inquired about his identity. With mild words, Jatayu replied, "My dear child, I was a good friend of your father. Long ago, Kashyapa married 8 daughters of Daksha. From Vinata, Aruna was born, and from Tamasa, Sieni took birth. I am the son of Aruna and his wife Sieni, and my name is Jatayu. My dear Rama, please accept me as your sincere servant. Since there are many fierce Rakshasas inhabiting this forest, whenever you and Lakshmana leave your cottage, I'll watch over Sita." Because of Jatayu's previous relationship with his father, Rama respectfully bowed to Jatayu. The vulture king then accompanied them to Panchavati, keeping a watchful eye the entire time. Arriving at Panchavati, Rama selected a suitable site for building their cottage, saying, "It will be good to make our residence at a site near a lake or river, for water and greenery together create the ideal scenic beauty." Rama selected a site near the banks of the Godavari and an adjacent lake beautifully adorned with pink and blue lotuses. The land there was flat, giving an unobstructed view of the entire area. The cries of swans and waterfowl could be heard from the river, along with those of peacocks, echoing from caves of the nearby hills. After building a suitable cottage there, they concentrated it with flower offerings, and Rama happily entered it. As winter gradually set in, the morning sunshine became pleasing to the sense of touch. One morning, just as Rama and Lakshmana had returned from bathing in the river and were conversing about their religious duties, a Rakshasa happened on the scene. Upon seeing Rama, her heart immediately became saturated with love. With his blown dark greenish blue complexion and lotus petal eyes, Ram appeared to be the god of love himself in human form. The Rakshasi, however, had an extremely ugly face, a large protruding belly, withered breasts, deformed eyes, and copper-colored hair, whereas Rama's body was youthful and well proportioned, muscular, and bearing all the signs of royalty. The Rakshasi's body was quite hideous and on the brink of middle age. Although she could change her form at will, she became so passionate upon seeing Rama that she forgot to change her revolting appearance. She approached Rama, saying, "My dear handsome one, please tell me who you are and why you have come to the forest, dressed like a hermit. Indeed, you are dressed in the garb of an ascetic and are wearing matted locks of hair, yet you are wielding a bow and keeping a woman. Why have you come to this Rakshasa-infested region? Please tell me who you are, and I will fulfill all your desires." In reply, Rama briefly explained the incidents leading to his exile. He then asked the Rakshasi who she was. The love-stricken demoness replied, "Hear the real truth, O lotus-eyed one. My name is Shurpanaka, the sister of Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Vibhishana, Kara, and Dushasana. I live in this forest and strike fear into the hearts of all creatures. Although my brothers are powerful, I surpass them all. I must frankly say I have become overwhelmed with love for you. My mind is made up to have you for my husband. Give up your ugly, deformed wife, for she is not worthy of a great hero like yourself. I am very powerful and can travel at will. Thus I am a suitable partner for you. First, I will devour the flat-bellied Sita and your brother Lakshmana. Then we will be free to revel together in the hills and valleys of the beautiful Dandakaranya forest. As the Rakshasi looked upon him with love-filled eyes, Rama laughed heartily at her proposal. Rama then jokingly said, I am already a married man, and certainly a young and beautiful girl like you could not tolerate living with a co-wife. My brother, however, who is an ever greater hearer than myself, is without a wife. Therefore I suggest that you marry him. Shurpanaka took Rama's words seriously and left his side to face Lakshmana. Saturated with lusty desires, she said, my dear handsome hero, you are indeed even more powerful and attractive than your brother. Therefore, I consider you to be even more suitable for me. Come, make me your wife, and we shall roam together through the forest, enjoying conjugal bliss. Lakshmana smilingly replied, O soft-skinned and lovely lady, you should know that I am simply the servant of my elder brother. Thus, if you were to marry me, it would mean that you would be no better than his maidservant. I think you would be much better off by becoming Rama's second wife, for in time he will surely discard the aging and misshapen Sita and accept you alone. You have such a lovely face, always adorned with sweet smiles. Your ample breast, slender waist, and wide hips will make a man forget all other women. Who could resist you? Marry Rama, and he will cast aside his ugly wife. Shurpanaka was too simple-minded to understand that Rama and Lakshmana were joking with her. Thus she again turned to Rama, saying, you are overly attached to the ugly Sita. Thus I will eat her up at once and forcibly take you as my husband. Saying this, Shurpanaka rushed at Sita. However, Rama checked her, telling Lakshmana, you should not joke with this Rakshasi in a way that endangers Sita. Now disfigure her in a way that will teach her a lesson. Upon Rama's order, Lakshmana drew his sword, swiftly slicing off Shurpanaka's nose and ears as his elder brother looked on. Shurpanaka screamed out in agony. Bleeding profusely, she fled into the forest. She quickly went to Janastana, where her brother Kara lived along with many other Rakshasas. Frightened and smeared with blood, Shurpanaka threw herself at her brother's feet, weeping bitterly. Then, as Kara looked on, her sister incoherently tried to explain what had happened. Seeing his sister's disfigurement, Kara's heart became filled with horror and rage. Breathing like a trampled snake, Kara said, oh, sister, please get up and calm yourself. Compose yourself so you can clearly tell me what has happened to you. Who has dared to injure you? Does he not realize that he has drunk poison by doing this? There is not a demigod, demon, Gandharva, or Rishi who can harm you and escape with his life. Point out the culprit, and I shall drink his blood with my sharp arrows. Sobbing bitterly, Shurpanaka replied, there are two brothers named Ram and Lakshmana staying nearby in the Dandakaranya forest. I do not know whether they are demigods or demons. However, since they have mutilated my face, I will only become satisfied after drinking their blood. Kara then called for 14 of the most powerful Rakshasas and sent them out with Shurpanaka to kill Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita. As the Rakshasas approached, Rama was sitting in the cottage with Sita, while Lakshmana guarded the doorway. Seeing the hideous man-eater, Rama ordered Lakshmana, stay here with Sita while I fight these Rakshasas. Rama then called out to the Rakshasas, we have come to this forest at the request of the rishis, to seek our protection from your atrocities. We are living a life of austerity, eating only fruits and roots. Why have you come here to disturb us? Turn back now. if you at all value your lives. Surprising at being challenged so courageously, the Rakshasas stared at Rama with blood-red eyes, saying, "Our master Kara is very angry with you and has ordered us to kill you. How can you hope to fight with so many of us? In a moment we shall crush you with our weapons and you will be dead." Then Rakshasa rushed at Rama with uplifting weapons. However, with 14 arrows, Rama cut their weapons to pieces. With 14 more, he pierced their hearts. Thus, like trees whose trunks had been severed, the Rakshasas fell to the ground dead, bathed in their own blood. Shaking with fear, Shurpanaka fled back to her brother's abode and informed him of the slaughter. "You tried to comfort me by sending these Rakshasas to kill Rama and Lakshmana, but they have killed all the Rakshasas with ease. Now you must go yourself to kill Rama and Lakshmana. If you do not gain revenge for what they have done to me, then I will give up my life out of shame." Saying this, Shurpanaka fell to the ground, overwhelmed with grief, and began beating her belly, bursting into tears. Hearing his sister's harsh words, Kara became enraged, uttered a vow. "Give up your sorrow, my sister. I promise to kill Ram and Lakshmana this very day, so that you may drink their blood." Hearing this, Shurpanaka became somewhat pacified. Kara then ordered his brother Dushasana to bring his chariot and weapons, and to assemble their army of 14,000 Rakshasas. Then Kara mounted his chariot and departed for the Dandakaranya forest with his Rakshasa army. At the as the Rakshasas proceeded, dark clouds showered rain mixed with blood upon them, causing Kara's horses to fall down on the road. A vulture came and perched upon Kara's flag standard, while a dark red aura dimmed the light of the sun. Then as jackals howled frightfully, darkness set in, and Rahu covered the sun, although not in an eclipse. At the while, Kara left arm trembled violently, and his voice became hoarse and faint. Still, despite witnessing all these harbingers of evil, Kara laughed, saying, "Oh, Rakshasa, because of my great prowess, I do not care for any of these cold, inauspicious omens." Meanwhile, all the great demigods and rishis assembled in the sky to witness the impending battle. As the Rakshasas approached, Rama described to Lakshmana the auspicious signs he had perceived. "My arrows are feeling joyful. My bow is stirring with delight, and my arm is throbbing. My dear brother, take Sita at once to a mountain cave and watch over her carefully while I massacre these Rakshasas." After Lakshmana and Sita had departed, Rama put on his suit of blazing golden armor. Then, when the Rakshasas advanced toward him, while roaring ferociously, Rama summoned his all-devouring anger and assumed a dreadful form. As the Rakshasa army surrounded Rama, Kara released 1,000 arrows, while other Rakshasas showered innumerable weapons, such as clubs, spears, swords, and axes. Rama, however, easily cut those weapons to pieces with his arrows. Even though deeply cut and bleeding, he appeared not to feel any pain. Rama then released thousands of arrows at the Rakshasas, cutting off their bows, flags, shields, armors, and bodily limbs. Indeed, many of the Rakshasas fell down dead, along with their elephants and horses, their chariots smashed to pieces. At that, the Rakshasas became further enraged and countered by showering their weapons upon Rama in even greater profusion. Rama, however, again cut their weapons to pieces with his arrows and killed many Rakshasas by piercing their hearts. He severed many of their grotesque heads from their gigantic trunks. Upon seeing this, the remaining Rakshasas fled in fear to the shelter of Kara. In great danger, Dushana suddenly rushed at Rama. Many Rakshasas followed him, encouraged by his valor. In response, Rama took up the best of the Gandharva weapons. Thus from his bow came many thousands of arrows, which soon covered the sun, engulfing the battle scene in darkness. From those arrows, thousands of Rakshasas were cut to pieces, and their dismembered corpses collected in tall heaps. Dushana then rallied his army, urging their remaining 5,000 Rakshasas to attack Rama. In the fight that ensued, Dushana fought heroically, and when Rama saw that the brother of Kara successfully counteracted his arrows, he became extremely angry. Taking up a blazing arrow, Rama cut Dushana's bow in half. Then with four more arrows he killed the Rakshas's horses. With another arrow, Rama severed the head of Dushana's driver, and with three more arrows pierced the Rakshas's chest. Although in great pain, Dushana jumped down from his disabled chariot and took up a spiked club. He then rushed headlong toward Rama, intent on killing him. However, with just two arrows, Rama quickly severed Dushana's arms, and then firing one more, he killed the terrible Rakshasa. Seeing Dushana fall, the remainder of his army rushed toward Rama, seeking revenge. Working at the speed of mind, Rama released 5,000 arrows in a steady stream, like so many blazing meteors. Thus the 5,000 Rakshasa soldiers soon lay slaughtered on the ground. Seeing this great massacre, Kara ordered his few remaining soldiers to attack. Rama, however, made short work of them. Thus the Dandakaranya forest became a sea of reddish mud from the blood of the 14,000 slain Rakshasas, with only Kara and Trishira remaining alive. As Kara prepared to attack Rama, his general Trishira begged him for permission to fight first. Kara agreed, and thus the three-headed Rakshasa came toward Rama, showering him with arrows. When some of the arrows pierced Rama's forehead, Rama became enraged and quickly retaliated by killing Trishira's horses and driver and knocking down his flag. Then as Trishira attempted to jump down from his disabled chariot, Rama pierced his heart with a fiery arrow and cut his three heads off with three more. Kara rallied the few remaining Rakshasas that had survived and fearfully attacked Rama. During the fierce duel that ensued, the streams of arrows so completely covered the sky that the sun became invisible. Then bringing his chariot close by, Kara dexterously cut Rama's bow in two. Next Kara released 1,000 arrows that shattered Rama's armor, which fell to the ground in pieces. Although his arms were deeply cut, Rama calmly strung the bow of Lord Vishnu. Rama then cut down Kara's emblem, but the Rakshasa retaliated with four arrows that bathed Rama in his own blood. Becoming more enraged, Rama quickly released 6 arrows that pierced Kara's head and arms and chest. Then with 13 more, Rama killed Kara's 4 horses, severed the driver's head, cut off his opponent's bow, and smashed his chariot. The last arrow, which appeared as dazzling as lightning, pierced Kara's chest, making him fall back senseless. Kara, however, quickly recovered and jumped down from his ruined chariot. Then he stood before Rama, club in hand. Rama chastised him, saying, "You cruel and sinful Rakshasa, since you have dedicated your life to giving pain to others, you are thoroughly condemned. To punish you, I shall now strike off your head this very hour." This merely enraged Kara further. He screamed at Rama, "You vile wretch! Those who are actually heroes do not brag about their prowess." Kara hurled his gigantic mace at Rama. The blazing club burned to ashes all the trees and bushes that stood in its path. However, Rama's arrows easily broke the club to pieces as it soared through the air. However, Rama's arrows easily broke the club to pieces as it soared through the air. Then the two again exchanged harsh words, and Kara, looking for a weapon to attack Rama with, uprooted a huge tree. Whirling it around and around, Kara released the tree at Rama, shouting, "You are killed!" Rama, however, easily cut the tree to pieces. Then, desiring to end the battle, Rama released 1,000 arrows. With blood flowing from nearly every pore of his body, Kara made a final rush toward Rama. As he did, Rama selected a blazing arrow, which entered Kara's chest and burst into flames. Finally, the Rakshasa fell to the ground dead. The demigods became overjoyed witnessing Rama's victory from their airplanes in the sky. As they beat on drums and showered flowers, the demigods glorified Rama for his astonishing feat of killing all the Rakshasas single handedly in such a short time. Great rishis, headed by Agastya, appeared before Rama and said, "When Indra previously visited Sarabhanga, it was to arrange for your killing these Rakshasas. That is why the Rishi advised you to dwell in this region." Thereafter Sita and Lakshmana came out from the cave they were sheltering in, and upon seeing Rama safe and sound, Sita ran to embrace him with great joy. One Rakshasa named Akampana, who had somehow escaped the massacre, went to Ravana's abode in Lanka and informed Ravana of the death of his two brothers. Upon hearing the news, Ravana became red with rage, shouting, "Who dares to offend me in this way, bringing about his own death? No one can save him now, not even Indra, Yamaraj, or Vishnu. Tell me at once, who has dared to make me so angry?" Fearful of Ravana's wrath, Akampana begged Ravana, "My dear lord, I shall gladly answer your questions. However, please promise that you will not become angry toward me for my truthful speech." Thus, after gaining Ravana's assurance, Akampana explained, "The 14,000 Rakshasas, including your two brothers, were killed by a human being named Rama, the son of King Dasharatha." Ravana then inquired, "Was this Rama accompanied by all demigods?" Akampana replied, "Oh no, my lord, this Rama killed all the Rakshasas single-handed without even taking help from his younger brother. Indeed, Rama is so powerful that he accomplished this awesome task in a very short time, less than 2 hours. No one could stand before Rama. When he became enraged, it appeared as if the entire universe would be destroyed." Ravana angrily declared, "I shall go to Janastana at once and kill this Rama and Lakshmana. Then we will see what kind of heroes they really are." But Akampana warned Ravana, "Please do not act hastily, underestimating the power of Rama. He is capable of annihilating the entire universe and again recreating it. Even if the demigods and demons all combined together, I do not think they could kill Rama. Therefore, O Lord, do not consider attacking him with force. There is, however, another way that I think could provide the means for Rama's death. The wife of Rama, named Sita, is an incomparable beauty, with a face that is lovelier and fairer than thousands of moons. Indeed, she is the very emblem of feminine attractiveness and the perfection of womanly chastity and behavior. I think that without Sita, Rama could no longer bear to live. Therefore, I suggest that you go to kidnap her. Ravana immediately liked this idea, and after reflecting momentarily, he responded, "Your suggestion is brilliant. I shall go to Panchavati tomorrow on my chariot and carry Sita away by force with great pleasure." After dismissing Akampana, Ravana went to the hermitage of Tataka's son, Maricha. After receiving Ravana with great respect and washing his feet, Maricha inquired, "O Lord of the Rakshasas, your surprise visit here fills my mind with misgiving. I know that you would not even come personally unless the matter were most important." Ravana replied, "You are certainly correct. A human being named Rama has completely annihilated my army of Rakshasas posted at Janastana. Rama's brother Lakshmana had disfigured my sister Shurpanaka, causing Kara and Dushana to retaliate. I considered my two brothers invisible, but they have been slain along with all their soldiers. I need your help, Maricha, because I plan to kidnap Rama's wife Sita." With great shock and horror, Maricha responded, "Whoever has given you this idea is worst enemy in the guise of a friend, O Ravana. If you try to carry out this foolish plan, it will only result in your destruction. For Rama has inconceivable prowess on the level of Lord Vishnu himself. Rama is like a fathomless ocean. Crocodiles are his bow, and whirlpools are his mighty arms. The releasing of his arrows is like the constant flowing of waves. The span of the ocean from shore to shore is the battlefield wherein his enemy is drawn. O king of Rakshasas, it would be far better for you to control your wrath and return to Lanka. Enjoy yourself there along with your wives, and let Rama enjoy with his wife in the Dandakaranya forest. Otherwise, you will bring disaster down upon your own head." Taking Maricha's advice, Ravana returned to his magnificent palace at Lanka. Meanwhile, Shurpanaka, having witnessed the slaughter of all the Rakshasas at Janastana, went to Lanka to see her brother. Ravana had 10 heads and 20 arms, and his body bore many scars from former conflicts, including those inflicted by Lord Vishnu's Sudarshan Chakra. Ravana had 10 heads and 20 arms, and his body bore many scars from former conflicts, including those inflicted by Lord Vishnu's Sudarshan Chakra. Once Ravana had attacked Bhogavati, the capital of the Nagas. After defeating the serpents Vasuki and Takshaka, he took away Takshaka's wife by force. Then, after conquering Kuvera, Ravana took possession of his Pushpaka chariot. Then, simply out of spite, he destroyed some of the heavenly gardens. Long ago, Ravana had performed severe austerities, and at the end of 10,000 years, he began offering his 10 heads in sacrifice to Lord Brahma. Being pleased with Ravana, Lord Rama awarded him immunity from death at the hands of all living creatures, except human beings. After receiving this benediction, the puffed up Ravana began killing Brahmins and disrupting their sacrifices. Thus he became a thorn in the side of the demigods, who fervently prayed to Lord Vishnu for his destruction. Ravana was seated on an ornate golden throne within his 7-story palace when Shurpanaka came into his presence and revealed her disfigured face. Greatly agitated, she said, "My dear brother, you are so absorbed in sense gratification that you fail to recognize the grave danger at hand. When the king is only interested in his own vulgar enjoyment and doesn't pay attention to state affairs, everyone comes to despise him. Haven't your spies reported how Rama single-handedly slaughtered 14,000 Rakshasas at Janastana, including your two brothers? You are a useless king, and I predict that you will not remain on the throne for long. Ravana became inflamed by the prodding from his sister, especially as she did it in front of his ministers. Barely controlling his anger, he inquired from her, "Who is this Rama, and what is his strength? Was it he that deformed you like this? Speak now, for I want to know everything." Shurpanaka replied, "With his long, powerful arms and large eyes shaped like lotus petals, Ram appears to be the god of love himself. His complexion has a dark greenish blue hue, and he is strongly built like a lion. His bow is as effulgent as a rainbow, and when he stretches it to full length, he shoots golden arrows that resemble venomous snakes, releasing them so fast that you can tell whether he is pulling out the arrows or shooting it. Although he is the most heroic Kshatriya, he has dressed himself in tree bark and deerskin and keeps matted hair. He killed the entire army of Rakshasas at Janastana with a volley of arrows. He has such exceptional strength that he has even subdued Kara and Dushana. I am sure he could divert the current of river or bring down the stars and planets from the heavens. Rama's younger brother is Lakshmana, and he was the one who cut off my nose and ears under his elder brother's instruction. The wife of Rama is named Sita, and she is exactly like the goddess of fortune. She has large dark eyes, and the beauty of her face surpasses that of many, many moons. Her smooth skin is the color of molten gold, and her slim waist, graceful hips, and full breasts make her incomparable beauty. Oh, Ravana, there is no other woman like Sita. If you were to see her, you would fall madly in love, for she would make a perfect wife for you. I intended to capture her to bring to you, but instead I was disfigured by Lakshmana. Now, my dear brother, you should go and kidnap Sita. That is, if you truly are as powerful as hero as you think. When he heard about the lovely Sita, Ravana became fully determined to possess her. He again mounted his chariot, and after crossing the sea, went to the ashram of Maricha, who was dressed like a rishi, engaged in performing austerities. Maricha inquired from Ravana respectfully, "O king, what is the reason for your early return to my residence?" Ravana replied, "After hearing of Rama's slaughtering the Rakshasas at Janastana, I have not found a moment's peace. I have therefore made up my mind to kidnap Sita, and I want you to help me. To this end, I have devised a very clever plan. I want you to take the form of a golden deer, freckled with silver spots. Afterwards, go out into the forest and play in front of Sita. She will surely become captivated by such a wonderful creature and desire to have it as her pet. After you prance playfully before her, lead Rama astray. Once you have done this, I will come and kidnap Sita, taking her back to Lanka. Thereafter, when Rama becomes aggrieved and emaciated due to separation from his beloved wife, I will easily be able to slay him." Upon hearing the name of Rama, Maricha became greatly fearful. His mouth dried up, and staring with unblinking eyes, Maricha addressed Ravana with folded hands. "O Lord, if you try to carry out this plan, it surely will cause the destruction of all the Rakshasas and your kingdom of Lanka. Because of your lusty nature and ignorance of Rama's prowess, you are foolishly rushing towards your own doom. Please hear from me of Rama's supreme potency before you act blindly and bring about your own destruction. Previously, I used to wander about the earth, club in hand, feeling very proud of my superhuman strength. I subsisted upon the flesh of rishis in the Dandakaranya forest. Out of fear, Vishwamitra approached King Dasharatha to solicit Rama's help for protecting his sacrificial performances. Thereafter, while Rama guarded Vishwamitra's sacrificial arena, I ignorantly went there with the intention of disrupting the proceedings. However, with just one arrow, Rama hurled me 800 miles into the ocean and then killed the other Rakshasas accompanying me. When I regained consciousness, having thus been spared by Rama, I returned to Lanka, but was still not cured of my false pride. Taking the form of a large carnivorous stag with a flaming tongue, I returned to the Dandakaranya forest and roamed about, drinking the blood of rishis. As it happened, I again came upon Rama, who was wandering in the Dandakaranya forest with Lakshmana and Sita. As the bitter memory of my past defeated in my mind, and considering how Rama had accepted a life of renunciation, I was determined to gain revenge. However, when I rushed at him, Rama released 3 arrows. My 2 companions were killed instantly, and I fled for my life. I think my life was spared only because Rama's arrows do not kill one who flees from the battlefield. Ever since that time, I have been consumed with fear of Rama. As a result, my inclination for violence and fighting has vanished. Having given up all malice toward others, I have taken to an ascetic life of yoga practice. However, I have failed to obtain peace of mind, for whenever I happen to glance upon a tree, I think that is Rama, dressed in tree bark. Thus, the entire forest appears to have become transformed into innumerable Ramas. Because of this, whenever I look anywhere, I become terrified. Sometimes I see Rama in my dreams and I immediately wake up, my heart thumping in terror. Indeed, I have become so afraid of Rama that whenever I hear a word beginning with the letter R, such as Rata or Ratna, my heart trembles with fear. O king, for your own welfare as well as for mine, I advise you to forget kidnapping Sita. Aside from fearing Rama, why should you perform such a sinful act? There is no offense more punishable than the abduction of another's wife. Remain satisfied with your thousands of wives and save your dignity, fortune, kingdom, and life itself. Having listened patiently, Ravana replied, Now you must listen, Maricha. I do not come for your advice. I did not come for your advice. I came to obtain your help in executing my plan to kidnap Sita. As my minister, it is your duty to give advice only when asked, and to obey my orders without question. I have made up my mind, and nothing can deter me. I want you to take the form of a deer to charm Sita. Then, when she begs Rama to capture you, lead him deep into the forest and call out, O Sita, O Lakshmana. When he thinks that his brother is in difficulty, Lakshmana will leave Sita aside to go help him. Just perform this small service, and in return I will reward you with half of my kingdom. However, if you refuse, then I shall kill you myself this very day. It is your choice. You may take certain death at my hands, or possible death at the hand of Rama. Make up your mind. Maricha, however, boldly declared, Flatterers are quite easy to come by, my lord. Rare is that person who will speak unpleasant words for the benefit of others. A minister should always give good advice, even if uncalled for, especially when the king is misguided. Unfortunately, however, one who's about to die is never willing to take good advice. O king, if we carry out your plan, I'm certain that both of us will end up dead. Still, I would rather die at the hands of an exalted enemy on the battlefield than be killed by you here. Therefore, let us depart at once. Mataji, it's 8:30. Like, should we stop here? Okay, until you stop me, I'll continue. Ravana was pleased that Maricha saw the wisdom of his ultimatum. He embraced Maricha and they mounted Ravana's.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Sorry. But thank you very much for the reading. It was so animated reading and it was very captivating. Hope it was not you're not too tired. And yeah, it was a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Unless anybody else wants to add anything, I think we can end here. Which page are you in, Mataji? 195?
196 and first paragraph, Ravana was pleased that Maricha saw.
Yes, I see that. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Sanna Mataji, for